And we're hot. There we go.
Cool.
Yeah, now we're recording. So, ladies and gentlemen, in every story, in every mythos, there's the person and the person who has the dream, and then there's the person behind them that pushes them forward and propels. And King Arthur had his Merlin, and that's the only one I can really think of right now. Batman has his Alfred.
I was about to say Batman and Alfred, yeah.
Yeah, and so
I guess Tony Stark has Jarvis. No, that doesn't quite work.
he has his Pepper Potts in a way.
Better.
Yeah. What was his? Butler's, his like driver's trainer.
Hello.
She wants to be on the podcast too. Happy.
Yes.
Happy. Yeah.
Yes.
He has his Happy. He has his whole bunch of people.
He's
My-
a support group.
He has his own group of mini heroes keeping him up. In any case, mine is my best friend, Manny, Manuel Silva, who as Kevin Smith says, there's a number of people in your life that ask why. Why do something? Why do this? Or how? There's not enough people that say why not. And one of Manny's annoying qualities that I hope I have after this point is not letting people just say something and get away with it. He holds you to the candle, and he makes sure that you get what you're asking for.
Yep.
And
Whether or not you realize that's what's happening.
and he is the sole reason why I have a podcast, because
You're
I
welcome.
said I wanted to have a podcast, and I laid out all the reasons why I couldn't, and he showed up one day with a computer. And then he showed up another day and showed me how to get online. He consistently doesn't let me stop with where I want to stop in my dreams and in my goals.
Well, no. Let me clarify that. I don't let you stop where your motivation stops.
There's that.
You
Yes.
want to be in a completely different place than you are with your goals, which is why they're goals. I'm simply here to remove obstacles.
Mm-hmm. And the whole reason why we have this up on YouTube is because I thought, well, Manny got me the computer. He showed me how to do this on iTunes. It's going to cost me money. And I envisioned what would happen if I went to you and said, well, I can't do it anymore because and I knew you would just say, like, put it up on YouTube, put it up on a free service, do this, do that. And so it was kind of like a counter, like, oh, I got to just do this because I know Manny's not going to let it go.
You're making me sound like the annoying friend.
No, it's a wonderful quality because it pushes me to keep going, to keep striving. And I can't give in to my excuses because I know I have an accountability partner that's just going to be like, nope, not good enough. Not a good enough excuse.
There are some excuses that are very good and valid.
There are.
The one that you just referenced, wouldn't have been good enough.
And it's refreshing because I get to look at you and you don't go into excuses. Like, your whole life looks like not once did you give into an excuse.
There have been plenty of times that I've given into excuses. I just don't like to ruminate on that too much.
Yeah. I've noticed you don't sit on the pity potty that long. Like, my whole life, I feel like I sit on the pity potty for far too long. Recently, I haven't. I've stopped and I've gotten up pretty quick, but it seems like you like hit a wall and you just go around it, or you dig underneath it, or you just climb over it. And the wall, like, it seems like nowadays you see a wall coming and you just jump over it as it comes near you.
Or I find the people that I need to talk to move the wall out of the way.
Yeah, or you just roll a dice and phase through.
I don't know. Pity is something that I just don't really think has any positive use. I mean, don't get me wrong. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence is very important. And for anyone to do well by themselves, they need to have some level of emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're pitying, let's start with someone else. When you're pitying someone else, you are in a way, looking down on them. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, you're not good enough, or oh, poor you don't understand what I'm trying to say or what I'm trying to do. You're looking down on them, and when you're pitying yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're just wallowing in a vicious cycle that digs you deeper and deeper. There's no pity doesn't help you get out of bad situations. There is no.
The bank has never said, "Oh, we take pity on you. Don't worry about the mortgage this month."
Exactly. I really don't know where pity came from, if that makes sense, because I can't think of a way in which pity helps the survivability of the species. For example, I don't know. I don't value it, and that's a big thing for me. I'm very picky about what I place my value in and how I measure those values. I just don't have time for pity. There's too much that I want to do.
That's right there. That's the tagline for this whole show. I don't have time for pity. I've got too much I gotta do. And so that's why we make such great friends, is we can go off on these tangents. So I've got an interesting jumping off point.
Please.
Marvel Universe. Let's open it up to DC Universe. Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
What's one villain that we haven't seen yet that you would like to see?
So there's one villain that we've kind of seen.
Okay.
That I wish could have been done differently, but I'm not sure they could have.
Okay.
The Mandarin. Iron Man villain.
Yeah.
So
Iron Man 3, Ben Kingsley, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, in the comics, he is this big, super duper powerful, magical guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he poses a really big threat. And he's, at least back in the 90s, he was one of Iron Man's biggest foes. But translating that to the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
especially before Doctor Strange, and yeah, they were still trying to go the kind of realistic human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even simpler than that, he would have very easily come across as a stereotype, and a very bad one at that.
Yeah. I thought Ben Kingsley was an interesting choice when they announced he's playing the Mandarin.
Exactly. And I thought that the way that they did it in the movie was about as well as they possibly could have. Play him up, but make him ultimately into red herring.
Yeah.
And make a joke out of him.
Yeah.
However, do you remember how they used to have these shorts that they would put on the DVDs or Blu-rays when they would come out, of these little side stories? Like there was one, I think it came out with the Avengers, where it showed just like these two construction workers coming across some alien weaponry and then mucking about, and somebody had to come in and stop them. Those shorts were really interesting, and there was one came out after Iron Man 3. I think it was one of the last ones that they made, where it showed Ben Kingsley in prison, and there was this dude interviewing him, and then the dude tries to kill Kingsley.
Yeah.
And in service to the real Mandarin. I am so sad that nothing actually ever came of that. It was such an interesting idea. It's like, oh yeah, we've already had this bait and switch. We've already played with your expectations, so let's set new ones.
Yeah, who writes the script for the fake Mandarin could be the real Mandarin.
Right.
And it's just a fall guy kind of thing. Yeah, I like that.
Because it's been teased already, I want to see the real Mandarin. I know we never will, but that's who I would want.
Well, here's an interesting how they could possibly do the real Mandarin is I suspect with Avengers, what's it going to be? Four Civil War 2. No, not Civil War 2. Infinity War 2. That there's going to be some level of time travel involved.
Yeah.
So Tony Stark goes back. Maybe he back to the first Avengers movie, he knows how to stop the Mandarin now, and he knows the Mandarin's fake, so he goes and stops it, but then that opens up a doorway for the real Mandarin to step through.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. There is so much at stake with this next movie,
Mhm.
and it's just narrative stakes.
Yeah.
And they're looking at so much bigger picture than at this point a terrorist or a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool if they explored that in the far future. I really hope they don't in the next movie.
No.
No.
Oh no, not in the next, because Infinity War 2 is coming out next, right?
Technically, there's Captain Marvel next, but yes,
Oh, well,
Infinity
yeah.
War 2 is the next one that'll feature everybody else.
Gotcha. Okay. And then it's interesting. I've heard the theory that Black Panther 2 could just be a female movie.
That'd be interesting.
Because he's gone, and so you have the like sister and the girlfriend and the head of the guard like as the featured main character. Maybe one of them takes the mantle for a while. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah,
it would be interesting, and it would be interesting for Marvel to step into the female lead kind of role, because Black Widow is also getting her own movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're doing that soon with Captain Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, which I'll say Disney did it first. Or Disney, Star Wars did it first. I mean, technically they're both Disney at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Star Wars did it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So same question back to you. Which villain do you want pursued?
Mine's a bit more of a deep cut, and I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't heard of it, but Death Cow.
I mean, you're the DC, what?
Death Cow. Marvel.
Cow.
Death Cow.
Oh?
Betsy was an award-winning cow that produced more milk than any of the other cows, and one night a vampire bit her, and now she roams as Death Cow. I think that would be the perfect villain for Deadpool 3.
I can see that. Or you know who else could use a resurgence?
What's that?
Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck could be. I feel like that too he would have to be like a side character for Deadpool.
And you know what? Fox and Disney were just given the okay in Europe, so
yeah.
With Deadpool coming to Disney soon and Marvel owns the rights to Howard, I think that would be an awesome team up.
I think so. Yeah. I think.
There we go. That's our top X-Force candidate.
Well, yeah, he does have to redo the team, right? Because
yep.
Well, but so you've seen Deadpool 2 at this point, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, so
and I've heard lots about the PG-13 re-release coming this holiday season.
Is really?
You didn't hear about that?
I don't.
It's called the Deadpool Before Christmas.
That sounds like a just. I don't know what that movie would look like. I would have to see it.
They're recutting it, obviously. But they got, I think his name is Adam Savage, the kid from The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in it.
Okay.
As the same character from The Princess Bride. Deadpool is reading to him. It's a narrative device. And and the cover that I just saw has like Deadpool and Adam Savage riding a reindeer.
Okay. I see. It would be shorter, wouldn't it? This is a full-length movie, right?
Yes, and they shot new scenes just for this movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And tons of voiceover work, I'm assuming, which is easy to do because he's in a mask.
Right.
But, yeah. That's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. But
from a storytelling point of view, I feel like it'll be interesting. I can definitely see how it would work.
And it wouldn't be canon because he's reading a storybook, right?
Right. But really what I see this as is a test for Disney. Because Disney has fought very hard to keep all of their Marvel movies PG-13. None of them go into R.
Yeah.
They don't come close. And, you know, that will go into Disney. This is Ryan Reynolds' way of saying, hey, Disney, we can work within your restrictions and still make an entertaining and profitable movie.
Or possibly I wonder if they'll go a different route and say, you know, because it's CG and he's wearing a mask and we've got Colossus, which is a totally CG character, if we can have an adult release and a kid's release, and like kind of you could sell the movie twice because the adults could go see the movie and then they could send their kid to go see the PG-13 one down the hall.
Yeah.
So I mean, in this day and age, though, with like the internet and downloading videos, the rating system kind of falls apart because back in the day it was kind of policed by the theater, right? And it came out and you went and bought a DVD and hopefully your parents didn't see that you had that DVD and the DVD store checked your ID. Blockbuster has ID'd me before. And
you
so
say that present tense, shouldn't it be past?
Well, ID'd. Yeah, I guess Blockbuster when it was a thing. I mean, there's still one.
That's depressing.
Have you heard of the last Blockbuster? Yeah, it's hilarious. But it's still one of those things of like nowadays Amazon, you can just order a DVD or you can instantly watch it like anywhere you want. So the rating system kind of falls apart.
It's still there for a purpose, and if you're a parent that's paranoid enough to set up parental controls, it still hooks into the systems there, but most people don't.
Yeah, well, most people don't, and then also you can look up online how to get around the parental controls. So it's, the internet's a toxic and enlightening thing, right?
Oh, totally.
You have all the information in the world, and also everyone has all the information in the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is information on the internet that could be utterly and totally detrimental to people as a whole. It's just, most people don't bother seeking it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's interesting. How do you feel about the Deadpool canon? Like, you have this movie, but then at the very end of the movie, he goes back in time and rewrites a whole bunch of different whole things.
Honestly, that was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
I laughed the hardest.
Oh, it was hilarious. But I mean, he goes back and saves like a couple of people from X-Force. So, yeah.
I don't know. The movie is irreverent at its core.
Exactly.
And so, for me, that continues into the movie's canon. Mm-hmm. There's no point in taking it seriously when the movie doesn't take itself seriously. So you know what? They want to do whatever they want to do as long as they make me laugh, I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point of it, right?
Exactly.
I felt like the second one had a little too much story and a little less on the laughs. So
I actually preferred the second one to the first. I know I'm generally speaking in the minority.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like the first one didn't have enough to it. It was too shallow.
Yeah.
In multiple ways. I much preferred the second one. I enjoyed that it had a bit more story to it, that there were more references to the universe in which it resides.
Oh, when he calls him Thanos.
That was hilarious.
I was like, nobody in the theater really laughed. And I was like, no, you don't get it. It's the same actor. You just can't tell because, like, one, it looks like he's got a golf club hanging from his chin.
That's a very pleasant way of putting it, yes.
Yeah, well, golf club, other things. So, switching gears slightly, but staying in the Marvel Universe, who looked better, Thanos or Apocalypse?
I actually didn't watch X-Men Apocalypse.
Uh-huh.
But from every still and video clip that I saw, I totally think Thanos looked way better.
They really dropped the ball on. He looked more like Ivan Ooze from Power Rangers.
Yep.
And that was what people were saying was like, in a world where you have cosplayers that look amazing, you can't come to the screen with anything less than your best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I feel like Apocalypse did a better Ivan Ooze than Rita Revolta did a Rita Revolta in the new Power Rangers movie.
I didn't watch the new Power Rangers movie. The pitch I got from the commercials was, it looks like they gave the Breakfast Club powers. These kids are in detention and they become friends and then they save the world. Like, I've seen this movie. The only difference is at the end, somebody walks away with a fist in the air. Like, what's going on with that?
Did you hear that? I can never remember his name. The guy who played the original Green Ranger. The guy who played Tommy.
Tommy, yeah.
Yeah. That he got kicked out of the screening of the new Power Rangers movie.
Why?
Because
it should have been me.
No, because he knew that there was a tease at the very end of the movie to Tommy, the character, showing up. And there was like another desk in detention or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. But he knew that it was coming up. He pulled out his phone to record the crowd's reaction behind him. Well, security saw him pulling out his phone and recording at a movie press screening and escorted him out. So he didn't get to see the very end of the movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he reprised his role as Tommy in an episode of the Power Rangers. I didn't watch the Power Rangers.
I was about to say, how religiously are you tuning in?
And I have we have two friends who do watch the Power Rangers, and it's adorable. But it was, I guess, like I don't know, whatever season that must be on, like 28 or something. And like they bring back all the iterations of the Power Rangers, the originals and the ninjas and the car one that they did, and then
the train.
Yeah, and so did they have one that was trains?
Yes.
Now that you say that, I kind of think I've seen like ads. It was so interesting. This takes me back, but my best friend in high school, we walked in one day and like his little sister was watching Power Rangers, and it was trains or cars or planes or something, and I was just like, wow, this really changed. And then I realized like the first one was like dinosaurs and prehistoric, so I was like, well, it kind of makes sense in a timeline fashion. Yeah, I guess. Okay. Like it just
jumped a few millennia, but yeah, whatever.
Well, it was like the second one was ninjas, and I was like, well, they were kind of already ninjas, so it kind of seems like like it just seemed.
Are we seriously debating the logical sense of the Power Rangers?
Okay, that's fair. I will say I am in the minority, and I'll probably say this name and you don't know it, but the Beetleborgs.
Oh, I totally know the Beetleborgs.
I was more on point with the Beetleborgs than I was the Power Rangers.
I was a big Power Rangers fan when I was little, I have to admit.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, they're more or less the same thing, right? Like,
yeah.
Shiny armory costumes, and I don't know,
Yeah. It's just, I only ever watched like 5 episodes of the Big Bad Beetleborgs because that's all that Fox would air.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the same 5 episodes over and over.
I think I had to follow it to a different network because a different network picked it up.
Oh.
Or at least picked up, the rights to air more than just the same 5.
Right.
Yeah, I liked the Beetleborgs, and then I liked the first season of Pokemon, and then they were like, JK, there's more to it. And there's more Pokemon, and I was like, I can't even remember the first 150. So then I started watching Metabots. Metabots, which was more, it was in the same vein of you have these little things and they fight, but they were robots. And you could interchange more parts, and they had this like medallion that was like their soul. The first episode, they beat it over the head that this medallion is like their soul, and like 6 or 7 people say it, and you're like, I get it. Okay, it's his soul. Cool. Can we see some more robot on robot fighting? And like it follows one guy, and there's this experimental soul one, but he doesn't realize he has it, and like he's got it in this bot that can like actually attack him, and everybody's like, why is this bot so angry with him? And like he has to actually become friends with the bot. It was more in the vein of like realism. Like I could see someday they have these little robots that Japanese kids like battle with each other, rather than like there's this animal creature thing that attacks other animal creature things. The only thing is it can only say its name.
Well, you know what? At least it makes naming the thing really easy.
Yeah, exactly. Like you discover it. I wonder what we'll call it. Pikachu. Well, that sounds good.
Personally, I was pretty into Digimon.
I got big into Digimon.
Yeah.
I had the little walk around pedometer Digimon thing. And as a kid, I figured out that you don't need to walk around with the pedometer thing. You just shake it. So I just hours of me just sitting by the TV, like shaking this thing. My bicep was really good, really overdeveloped for 15.
Actually, why is one arm strangely more muscular and stronger than the other?
Spent a lot of time alone with my Digimon. What they call it? Okay. He needs to talk to somebody right now.
I remember, so I played a lot of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting my little Game Boy and just walking up and down the hallway, just playing Pokemon because I didn't want to sit in my room. So I would just pace and pace and pace and play Pokemon, and it was absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But I was never as obsessive about it as my brother was. Okay. He played, let me see, Generation 1, Generation 2, Generation 3, I think all the way up to Generation 6, and 100% completed his Pokedex.
Wow, like caught every single one of them?
Every single one. In every single game.
Mm.
And, he would do all the trades he needed to do and everything, so that in every single game, he 100%ed his Pokedex.
I remember thinking that was very interesting technology where you got the cord and you could battle Pokemon and stuff like that. I thought that was very, like that for us was essentially like popping on like Call of Duty nowadays.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. The point is, like, if you raged against the person, they were right next to you too. So,
that gets into a whole other topic of local multiplayer versus online multiplayer.
Uh-huh.
Dude, I am local multiplayer to the end. I intensely dislike online multiplayer in general.
Mm-hmm.
Local multiplayer, you're there. You're sitting next to or across from the person that you're playing with.
Yeah.
And whether it's cooperative or competitive, it doesn't really matter. You're there with the person. It's a very
shared experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas with the online multiplayer, it's very detached.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, okay, yeah, you can be having a good time, but you're still separate from the person. It's no longer a shared experience. It's a fragmented or a sharded experience.
Yeah.
Because, you're all participating in the same thing, but each of us all in our little silos. So, yes, there are games in which that is good. Like, that's the only way that MMOs could ever work.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't care for those.
Yeah.
I much prefer sitting on a couch and playing, like, Towerfall. Or just something, Mario Kart, something competitive or cooperative, just as long as you're there with the people that you're playing with.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more enjoyable.
And it's sad because nowadays you can't find a lot of couch co-op.
It's harder on consoles.
Mm-hmm.
In PC land, yes, that's where I play generally. No, I'm not part of the PC master race. There are a lot of smaller games that are co-op friendly. Like there's Overcooked and Overcooked 2, where you play as chefs in silly kitchen situations and you need to cook dishes along with the people that you're playing with. There's, Stickbolt. There's, I don't know, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of games. Most of which I can't remember right now because I have a 4-month-old. But on consoles, there's not a whole lot. Like a couple of things bubble to the top, like Towerfall. Killer Queen is coming to Switch soon, which I'm so excited about. But besides that, it's hard.
Yeah, I like multiplayer games where I know the people that I'm playing and it's cooperative versus like battling against. Destiny is a good example. I could play that with my friend Colin and his brother Alan, and we can pop on and we can talk to each other and we knew each other, so the experience is still the same. You're not in the room. But I was talking to somebody at GameStop years ago when I was looking for more. Me and my ex wanted to play some games together because I was trying to get her interested in gaming and she had played a game, and I was like, it'd be nice if we could play together rather than one of us just watching the other. And he said, oh yeah, there's nothing. Split screen couch co-ops are kind of dead. It's or dead are the days of sitting in your basement in the dark playing video games for hours. And I went, well, but why? Like, that was fun. That's nostalgic for some of us. And I get that, you know, you're trying to incorporate the Connect, which was god awful, but like, we're trying to get people more active and out there, but maybe we don't need that. Maybe it'd be nice to have that as an option, but and single player seemed to be going away for a while. There's a lot of games that came out, you know, Left 4 Dead, which was solely your online experience. Yeah. And you know, now we're getting back into like Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto 5. I know I just said 2 Rockstar games, but
I know where your preferences lie.
Vampire, like an online, it's not online, it's just solo. And yeah, they eventually are going to come out with something for Red Dead Redemption that has online capabilities, but for right now, it's just you. And it's kind of nice because my friend and I get to play the game and he's playing the game, and he tells me, oh yeah, did you know you could do this? And oh yeah, wait till you get to this mission, it's really funny. And we were just quoting that there's literally a mission where you take a guy drinking in a bar and you get drunk, and there's one part where you're walking around the bar trying to find him, and everybody looks like him until you talk to him and you go up and Lenny, and then they say, I'm not Lenny, and you blink, and then all of a sudden it's somebody completely different. It's really funny. Really funny. And it looks like you're going to get into a fight with these 2 guys, and then he kind of hazily blinks, and all of a sudden everybody's singing and dancing together. And I was like, this is an accurate representation of what it's like to be drunk in a bar at 2 a.m. And then, like, the cops try to chase you down, and you try and run away, but the button for jump doesn't work, so you try to jump over a fence, and you just... It's $10 for drunken disorderly. Okay, here's your $10. Okay, you can go free. Yeah, it's very, very. It's fun, and you get to experience that with the person later on. But in the moment, it's solely you. Yeah, yeah,
and they're all unique experiences. So, I'm a big proponent of, or I very much enjoy single player games.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is because some of the only time that I get to game anymore, I am by myself without internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. You get to build your own narrative for a lot of these more dynamic games, even things like strategy games like Stellaris. It's like a much more evolved Command and Conquer. To put it mildly, but it gives you fragments of interactions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, well, you reached this star system and this civilization reacted in this way based on these things. But it's really easy to like role play into that. It's like, okay, well, I've acted in these ways before. If I'm going to continue acting similarly and like build up this narrative for my civilization, oh, it makes total sense that this group would react in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, then I'm going to respond in kind and either further this feud or help to resolve things or whatever. And by building interaction upon interaction upon interaction, you get your own narrative that's uniquely yours that you can then go and talk to somebody else and say, oh, hey, this really cool thing happened.
Yeah. And I like more, as games are evolving, we're seeing this is my game. Mm-hmm. This is my world. This is what I created. And there are different paths you can go down. And maybe you talk to somebody else. You know, Fable 2 or Fable 3, I think it was Fable 2, had it where that was their campaign was, for every choice a consequence, and you might end up on this path where your friend ended up on this path because he decided to kill this person instead of saving them, or he decided to go the extra mile to this other town to give them food when you decided to go over here because it was more profitable. And obviously the game did not end up that way because Peter Molyneux is very good. Molyneux, I think is his name?
Yeah.
Is very good at promising the world and then being like, here's your turd. Thanks for paying the $60. No refund. And yeah, but in gaming now we're seeing that where in not Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption 2, subtle things like how you enter a bar determines how people react to you. If you go, sprinting into the bar and slam open the doors, everybody turns to you, and you can hear whispers of what's wrong with him, what's going on, and you go up to them, and you can see they shy away a little bit. Whereas if you walk in through the bar and you just kind of mosey through the door, you might get like a hey partner, depending on how you behaved in the bar and in the town last time. You start, and subtle things like when you visit a town that you haven't been to in a while, you'll see, hey, I haven't seen you around in a while. And it's just those kind of small things that make you think like, oh, this is more like a real world.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny that games have gotten so much better about that. I really think that they are starting to surpass what things like tabletop roleplay could do in that area, at least in some regards.
Mm-hmm.
Because before these more modern open world games that are very responsive, to get that sort of an interaction, you'd have to be doing a tabletop game like Dungeons & Dragons or whatever system you prefer.
Where you jump off a building and knock yourself out in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, guess what he did?
I'm going to jump off the building. Roll. What?
But when you have to roll.
No, my character is good at this. Yeah, you still have to roll.
Yeah, that's why you get bonuses. But, I mean, before, if you wanted any kind of a dynamic experience, you needed people to do that. People fill in the blanks. We would ad-lib and improvise. But now, games are sophisticated enough that they're starting to be able to fill in those gaps. They can remember things a heck of a lot better than people do and respond more consistently. So video games are now providing a more consistent world that is interactive than I think any other medium can really provide.
Yeah.
However, they are still much less flexible than other mediums where people might want to jump off of buildings. You don't need to worry about whether or not there's a jump button.
Yeah.
For tabletop games. So.
Well, and that's just the interesting thing is I feel like, maybe a generation or two more of games, and you could have a Dungeons and Dragons game where you make a character and you can either roll or the system will just randomly assign you, different characteristics, and then we can go pop into a world that the game says, our creators just came out with this one this month. And you pop in and you get your your backstory and where your character starts, and then go.
But there are games like that.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to Baldur's Gate, the old isometric games.
Mm-hmm.
Baldur's Gate was built on Dungeons and Dragons version 3. Like, that is what is running the game under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
And you could build your own character and do your own thing, and then you could play through the setting that they set up, and then there were expansions, and so they would keep coming out with new content. The issue with that, you're still limited by the engine that you're playing in. And this is just a hard and fast limitation of video games.
Mm-hmm.
You are limited by the constraints put in place by the developers. You can't do something that the game is not expressly designed to support. You can't say, I'm going to go back to the jump button example. There are plenty upon plenty of games where a minuscule amount of rubble blocks your character's path because they can't jump over it, and for whatever crazy reason they can't just walk over the slight bit of stuff.
I've hit so many glitches riding my horse in Red Dead Redemption where it's a normal rock, it looks like he should be able to step up, but and then I fall off the horse and the horse takes damage and I take damage, and I go, he went over a boulder 10 times that size like 5 minutes ago. What's going on? Somebody rolled and missed.
Yeah. Whereas In a more freeform game,
Mm-hmm.
you can say that you want to jump off of a building, and then I can make a joke about there being a bundle of hay at the bottom that you're aiming for, and when you fumble bad enough, you splat right next to it.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's nothing that will ever be able to match the free-form nature of a tabletop role-playing game.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, they still have constraints. Any game has to have some sort of constraints. Otherwise, it's just people sitting around and talking about things that they'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
But video games just are inherently more constrained because of their nature, because they are pre-programmed.
Yeah.
They can't adapt on the fly as well as a person. But they do have their pros, like I mentioned. They're much more consistent most of the time when you're not running into bugs.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Westworld?
The first season.
The first, okay, yeah, same here. I haven't seen the second season. But it's interesting that you can kind of see that's a possibility way off in the future. Now, somebody pointed out that that's 2040 in the show. I don't think we'll be there in 20 years. It'd be nice, but I don't think so. But how immersive that could be if you're in a world where you just kind of take on your own persona. You make your own character while you're in this place. Yeah.
That could be really interesting, but I think eventually we might reach that level of artificial intelligence to be able to mimic human behaviors really well. But even in that show, I mean, with the exception of the few characters that do go off the rails, they're scripted even still. They are very well designed.
Yeah.
But they still don't support the unprogrammed behaviors well.
Yeah.
They have a few fallbacks, which honestly we have now with our current artificial intelligence. That's a normal thing, even just in natural language understanding and conversation processing.
Yeah.
If the application receives input that it doesn't know how to process, it just says, "Oh, hey, I don't know what to do about that. Here's an error for you." And in things that are designed well, they fail gracefully. It's like, "Oh, hey, I don't know what to do about that. Did you mean this, that, or the other thing?" And that's essentially just a much less sophisticated version of how the artificial intelligence works in Westworld, with, again, the exception of the ones who go off the rail, which is what the show's really about.
And that's, gaming nowadays is more, you can see it's a script, it's cause and effect. You know, I say this, you'll probably say this based on this past thing. Or if I pull out a gun, he'll react this way based off of what I've done in the past. And everything's kind of built on itself, which means the fail rate is really high if it's not done right. Case in point, Mass Effect Andromeda, where I guess it was just a few lines of code, but, you know, my father died, and they have this huge smile, and people are going, what is going on with this game? Because this thing tells it to do this thing, but this thing over here was done wrong, so now it's looking over in the happy section of the character's reactions. I think gaming is only going to improve. How do you feel about gaming being more about the money nowadays?
It's always been about the money.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, let's look back even to the birth of the PlayStation. So that originally came about because Sony and Nintendo were collaborating on a CD add-on for the SNES.
Okay.
But Nintendo didn't. There's a whole history to this, and it's big and convoluted, and it involves people pissing other people off. But in short, Nintendo decided to cut off the partnership because they didn't think it would be profitable. That led exactly. That led to Sony deciding, "Hey, no, we're going to take all of this R&D that we've already done, and we're just going to make our own thing." The companies who make the hardware have only ever been in it for the money. The people who make the games, that's debatable. Most of the time, the big developers, they're only ever in it for the money. And again, it's always been that way. I think nowadays it's actually the easiest time for people who are doing it for passion to get involved. And it's been this way for a while, like in the PS3, Xbox 360 generation. That's when it really became easier for indies to release their stuff.
Yeah.
It had been happening on PC a little bit before then.
What with Steam and everything like that.
Yeah, but even Steam was better gated than it is now. It's just now it's easier for indie creators to get out there. I keep circling back to Towerfall. I don't mean to, but
I mean it's a good example of what an indie game can be.
Exactly, and it's one guy who made it, and it came out on PC first. It was a hit. It came out on PS4. It's coming to Switch. It's all over the place now. His new game came out on consoles as well as PC. I mean, he made a name for himself. And sure, yeah, he gets monetary kickback, but he really enjoys making games. Whereas a big development studio who's going to sink billions of dollars into a game, well, yeah, they're going to look for a return on investment. They have shareholders to report to. It's just now all of the studios that used to dot the landscape in the PS2 era, there used to be a whole bunch of medium-sized ones and a couple of large ones. By and large, they've consolidated. So now we have a couple of medium-sized ones, a couple of large ones, and a handful of super large studios. I mean, Activision Blizzard. The two individually were juggernauts before they merged. Now they're one thing. EA bought up so many other companies.
But EA is also kind of circling the drain right now because of bad practices that they've implemented, right?
And in public perception-wise, financials, they're still doing fine.
But I mean, if all of a sudden your name means dirt, like
their name has meant dirt for half a decade, people still buy their games.
Yeah, but like, so prime example when I think of EA is the Star Wars Battlefront that just came out.
Yeah.
And how, people were really pushing for different things that they wanted, and EA said, yeah, we're totally going to give you that. It's just going to be the worst possible example of what you want. You want a storyline. Okay, storyline, well, from what I hear, is the best part of that. The online gaming sucked. The unlocking new characters was totally monetized. And so now it's kind of one of those things. If EA says, guess what, we're doing another Battlefront, people are going to go, guess what, we're not going to buy it. Or limited number of us will.
But here's the thing. Sure, they might have run Battlefront into the ground, but they still have a dozen other properties that they're actively pursuing and are still releasing games from. A single property does not define these giant publishers. And that's the other bit. They're not just developers. EA publishes other developers' games as well. And so those other folks, they are making money on other people's development efforts. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. They're one of the biggest game companies in the world. Right up there along with Ubisoft and Square Enix. Square Enix being the smallest of all the ones I just mentioned.
Now, it's very interesting you bring up Ubisoft because I was going to talk about them and their Assassin's Creed games because they've taken a huge shift from where they were, and now they've gone full RPG with the games. And the play style is completely different. The storylines are different, more or less. I mean, they still stick to the same kind of canon that they've established.
Right.
But it's interesting to see a gaming franchise kind of going in one path for so long and then decide, you know what, we're going to take a risky move and we're going to change everything you know about it. I haven't played the past 2 games that they've come out with because the RPG play style doesn't sound like something that's for me. But from what I've heard from my friend who's playing it, he said it's the best decision they could have made.
I've played a tiny bit of the new one.
Okay, the Odyssey?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying it so far. And when I mean tiny, when I say tiny, I mean tiny. But yeah, sure, there are abilities and you can unlock new abilities, but it's an action RPG. I mean, it's first and foremost still an action game with RPG elements. It's not like they turned it into a JRPG. It's not a traditional Final Fantasy.
Or turn-based.
Yeah. It's not like timer-based or turn-based. It's not a menu-driven thing. You're still directly there controlling the character. And so, yes, I understand that there are RPG elements underlying a lot of the structures now. But the way I look at it, it's still an action game first and foremost.
Yeah.
Something that I think is interesting is that everyone seems to be consolidating on the action RPG design recently. I mean, look at, and when I say recently, I use the word loosely, but Final Fantasy. It had been either turn-based or time-based and very menu-driven. Final Fantasy 15, which came out almost 2 years ago now, which I think is crazy, technically can be menu-driven if you want it to be, but it's an action RPG. It's made in Japan, sure, so technically one could argue that it's a JRPG, but there's a strong skill and ability system that underlies it, but you're in the middle of everything mashing buttons to kill people, so yeah, it's an action RPG. Just a bit more chunky than most of the other ones that have come out recently.
See, I started playing Witcher 3, and everybody says it was a great game, and it looks like it's got the potential to be, but it just didn't strike me. There was something about the combat and the play style and the story wasn't that gripping for me. That I just I still have it, and it's on the back burner of like, maybe when I don't have something that I'm currently playing, I can sit down and play this. But it didn't strike me, and that's also why I didn't pick up the last 2 Assassin's Creed games, was because I was tempted to check out the new playstyle, but Egypt didn't really sound interesting with the origin. I was kind of interested in the origin story, but didn't seem like something I was that monumentally like gripped by. And Odyssey, you play a mercenary, and I was okay, that sounds. But Black Flag was my favorite one. You play as a pirate, and I thought, well, okay, I like pirates, and you get your own ship, and you get your own crew, and all this fun stuff. And then it was Unity wasn't that great, but France and during the Revolution kind of seemed like it was okay. That's a pivotal moment in history. And then Evie Fry and you could play, you could switch between the characters in Victorian England. I thought Victorian England, and they kind of have this steampunk kind of gadgets that you used, and that to me was gripping. And so it's the games, as I'm getting older, it's more, I'm very selective with my dollar of I want to play a game that's interesting, challenging, fun, but also something that I can go and talk about.
I mean, personally, I haven't played an Assassin's Creed in a very long time until this new one. And this new one caught my attention.
Okay.
It partially because it is Greece. And I study the classics. I'm biased, I admit it.
Well, you get to meet Plato and a few other philosophers, don't you?
I believe so, yes. But even still, it's the opening sequence is that crazy fight made popular by the movie 300. I mean, that's the tutorial. It's just novel to me. You mentioned the setting multiple times, and the previous Assassin's Creed games that you played and that you enjoyed, and that was a really driving factor for me. It's like, okay, Victorian England, cool. Not that, like, don't get me wrong, it's neat, but there's so many properties that are set in Victorian England, it wasn't novel to me. There are so few entertainment options set in these other locations. Like, Origins did appeal to me because it was set in ancient Egypt, and that piqued my curiosity. I just wasn't at a place to play it. Odyssey, it's like, oh, you mean I get to play a badass Spartan warrior in ancient Greece with all of this cool shit going on? Yes, please.
Yeah.
That scratched my itch.
It's interesting. It's nice that they found a market where they can hit people that are interested in different times and different things. One of the reasons why I liked picking up the older Assassin's Creed games with Black Flag, and then also the Victorian England one, Syndicate, I think it was called.
I think so.
Was I don't like stealth games primarily for the small part of, if you screw up a little bit on a stealth game, you kind of have to start all over with the mission. And I don't want to play.
If the stealth is done poorly, yes.
If it's done poorly, and so if you do like 5 minutes of a game, and all of a sudden the last 2 seconds somebody sees your foot, and you have to start all over again because you got discovered. I liked those games because it was you had stealth missions, but if you fucked up and somebody saw you, it just turned into like, okay, now you got to slaughter these 10 guys.
Right.
And the Victorian England one, they said, there are people that are upset because it's turned into, now you're a combat assassin. So we're going to have one character that's the run-in, bang them all up, and you've got the girl who's really good at stealth. And so you can choose how to come at this mission, and it complements your playstyle, whatever it is. And I thought that's a very interesting way of putting it, of giving you a choice without funneling you into, this is how the mission has to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a game that did that very well, I didn't necessarily enjoy, but I think handled that problem very well. I know a lot of people enjoyed, was Hitman, the modern one.
Yeah.
And to a lesser degree, Dishonored. So,
yeah.
Because both of those, Dishonored didn't do it as well. But in Hitman, like you could sneak into wherever you're going. That one more or less forced you into stealth primarily. But if you were caught, then you could deal with the assailants in the immediate area. And as long as, you dealt with them and you disposed of them reasonably, then you could just continue on stealthing. There might be a brief interruption, but it wasn't like if you got caught, then that was the end all be all and you lost your mission. It's just, okay, well, things got more complicated.
Yeah.
And I experienced very similar things with Dishonored. It was, okay, if I'm smart about this, I can just stealth through the whole thing, and oh no, I got caught by one guy. As long as I can take him out before he alerts everyone else, then I'm good. It did get to the point where I didn't manage to take him out before he alerted other people, and I did have to murder the 10 folks to continue going. But I mean, that's just how the dice roll sometimes.
Black Flag had a mechanic where if somebody saw you, maybe 3 guys squared off with you while the 4th guy ran for a bell, an alarm bell. And if you could get to that guy and kill him before the bell, or if you were smart and you stealth up to the bell and cut it with your sword, then he would go and ring it and nothing would happen, and he kind of freaks out and then rejoins the fight. But I thought there was just kind of a program error in that you could take out your pistol and shoot the guy ringing the bell, and I thought, the gun's probably louder than the bell, but nobody hears your gun.
Right.
Yeah. And so you'd think if you're a guard and you hear a gunshot, you're going to get investigated.
Right.
Yeah.
A game that did handle that well was Horizon Zero Dawn.
I really wanted to play that, yeah.
I'm telling you, man, you need to get a PS4 to play it. That and the new God of War. But yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn had something very similar. There were times where you were raiding bases where these people had taken over living dwellings and turned them into outposts. And they had different ways of notifying each other, effectively the bell. And if you were stealthing in, you could spot these things and just snipe them with your arrows. And I mean, it was quiet. And if somebody saw you take it out, they would be alerted. But otherwise, if you did it when everyone's back was turned, they would notice they couldn't call in reinforcements. and didn't run into that particular issue that you just mentioned because, Arrow's a lot quieter than a pistol.
Yeah. It's, the interesting gaming, trying to get close enough to reality to be believable, but still enjoyable.
Much like horror properties and cell phones.
Yeah. So switching gears slightly to DC.
Yeah.
You heard that Ben Affleck is not going to be Batman anymore. He's hanging up the cowl.
No more Batfleck. Which,
it's interesting because while I don't think he was a good Batman, he was the best part of those movies.
I fully admit I still have not seen any of them.
Don't do it with anything smashable around.
Yeah.
I saw it in theaters, and I was very upset. And then I saw it again with somebody else who was upset that how upset I was, because every time it came up, I would just no, it's not good, it's not good. And so finally they said, well, put your money where your mouth is and let's watch it, and you can tell me why you don't like it. And I realized, as a whole, it's a steaming log of turd. But, if you look at turds close enough, you see a little grain of corn. And so there's like 5-minute intervals in that you're go, that was a good 5 minutes. And then you've got turd going to the next kernel. I like to get graphic with my metaphors.
I was about to ask you could never use that metaphor ever again.
But there's parts where you see parademons and you go, wow, they found a way to put parademons in here. And, Batman fighting. Batman he moves how Batman moves. Granted, I'm pretty sure he killed everybody in that room because he drives somebody's head through concrete, and you go, he's not alive after that. And he smashes a car full of bad guys with another car full of bad guys. And Batman doesn't kill, but okay, maybe this one does, but you need to go back, and they skip over his origin story. I like it because they just kind of do it very quick through the credits. And because who doesn't know who Batman or how Batman is now? And, it's kind of a dream sequence that he's talking about afterwards. And it's just kind of, if this is a Batman who kills, go back and show me the event that caused Batman to start killing, to break his one rule.
Right.
And they have hints about it. You see what looks like either it's a Riddler, or not Riddler, a Robin costume that the Joker's written on, or it's Joker's costume that he used to wear that he wrote on in the Batcave, kind of like the penny, it's in one of the plexiglass things. And okay, you saved time with not showing me the origin story. Show me why Batman kills.
Right.
That would explain some depth into what I've seen. Maybe it would be a more interesting story than, spoiler alert, and I'm sure you've heard it now, but the reason why Batman and Superman start fighting is almost as bad as the reason why they stop fighting.
Yes.
Yeah, they stop fighting because, ironically enough, both of our moms are named Martha. And
best narrative device ever used. I will include it in every D&D session I ever run. Every story I ever write. Just, what? The title of our next D&D session is just going to be Martha. I really need to create a character named Martha.
There is a line in it where Martha, Superman's mom, gets rescued by Batman, and he goes, I'm friends with your son. And she says, I know the cape was a dead giveaway or something cheesy like that. But the line is, I'm friends with your son. And I thought it should have been, I'm friends with your son. Well, not really. I just beat the living fuck out of him. And the only reason why you and him are still alive is because your parents decided to name you Martha. But I think that line got edited out in the process. Yeah. And I was just like, this is a good, you have a good premise for the movie. I've seen the movie that this is based off of, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight. And that was a fantastic. And the reason why they start fighting is very understandable. And Batman beats him in the end, and much the same way that Batman was winning the fight. And I just went, you have all this material. DC has good material for what's been written. Why can't you put it into a movie? That's yeah. At the end of the day, that's all you can do is just
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, speaking of DC and good material, have you heard about the new Black Label line of comics or imprint of comics that they're releasing? They started it with White Knight.
Yeah.
There is essentially the collection of, as what's the term they use, the most evergreens and continuity light stories in the DC collection. So that somebody who is a casual comics reader but wants to be able to dive in with something hearty could just go and find one of these Black Label books. And like Watchmen is coming out black on the Black Label imprint, and
it's still going to be the same story.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a reprint under this new label. But they're doing a whole bunch. Like White Knight was one of them. The Frank Miller stuff is coming out under Black Label.
Well, so for people that don't know what White Knight is, do you want to give them a quick rundown?
Sure. So I didn't read the whole thing, but White Knight is essentially what if Joker is the hero. The premise is that, he and Batman have been fighting for so long. He makes the argument that if he was on the proper antipsychotics and other things, that, he would be a reasonable person, and that Batman and the city's allowance of Batman is what's causing all of the trouble.
And he actually does get sane for
yes
a brief amount of time and goes by his regular name and everything.
Yeah, he actually becomes involved in politics and all sorts of stuff. And from what I hear, with the exception of the ending, it's a fantastic run.
I enjoyed the ending, actually, because Batman and, does he go by Jack? His regular name is Jack. Kind of end up, so there's two Harley Quinns. One that's younger and kind of more insane, and the one that actually loved him as his therapist and became Harley Quinn to be with him. And spoiler alert, the original Harley Quinn is the one that came up with the psychotic cocktail that turned him sane for a while. And the younger Harley Quinn actually tries to turn him crazy again and takes over the Sandman. She takes the Mad Hatter's hat, puts it on the Sandman, so she controls the Sandman. Then she has the Sandman pour his sand into a cocktail that she ends up giving to all of the supervillains. So through the hat, she controls Sandman, who controls all of them. And I was like, well, that's some next level genius stuff that the Joker couldn't even come up with. So maybe she's better off.
Yeah, kudos.
She takes all the supervillains and trashes Gotham. Batman gets locked up for a time. Then they release him so he can take down the supervillains with Jack. And Jack kind of comes to this understanding that the Joker's still in him and that psychotic drugs that he's taking are wearing off. And so before he goes completely insane again, he wants to round up all the villains with Batman. And they kind of become friends in a brief experience. And, he marries Harley Quinn in his last moments of sanity before they, slam the door shut. And it's very touching in a way, because you kind of have to see, like, the Joker is insane, but through that insanity, he could be a great guy if he just didn't have this psychotic monster living in him.
Right.
And Batman, at the same time, is this great hero, but if looked at it through another prism, we tolerate him because he's a psychotic guy that takes out other psychotic guys.
Right.
Yeah. And it was very interesting. Anyways, I love the White Knight, so I wanted to make sure we could talk about it. But other Black Label comics.
No, that's everything that I remember right now. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I mean, comics companies are always trying to find new ways to get their comics in front of readers. But
and Stan Lee, creator of Marvel,
creator of many characters under the Marvel umbrella.
There you go. Yeah, credited with carrying Marvel. Let's say it that way.
I'll give you that.
Okay. He said he's credited with saying every comic is somebody's first comic, so you have to be able to pick it up and read it. And I think that's a big difference between Marvel and Marvel movies and DC movies.
How so?
If you go to see any Marvel movie, you could walk in and relatively, not having seen any of the other ones, know what's going on and get it and get behind the action and the characters. Whereas DC Comics and DC movies, you walk into, say, well, I mean, they're still in their kind of phase one.
Yeah.
But you would feel kind of alienated if you were just walking into, like, I saw Batman v Superman before I saw Superman, and I didn't understand exactly what was going on. I could kind of get it, and after a few minutes, you're kind of like, okay, I assume I'm at this point in your storytelling arc. But had I not known the origins of Superman or anything like that, would have been lost.
Yeah, well, I chalk that up to Zack Snyder and the executives at WB.
Yeah.
They want to emulate Marvel as quickly and financially sound as possible. And even though their movies could be better and make them much more money, they are still making money, and so they are happy enough. Though, didn't Zack Snyder step out from WB?
Yes.
So who took up his reins?
No idea. They've got not large shoes to fill. What's the opposite? Tiny shoes to stretch out. Yeah. I know.
Like small slippers, that thing.
Oh, yeah. They've got to shoehorn that. I find myself a little bit excited for Aquaman just because the premise seems like it's there, and Jason Momoa is a fantastic actor, and they did better with Wonder Woman.
Yes, that is one of the few DC movies that I did see. The hype was a bit too much for me. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was an entertaining movie. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't as groundbreaking as everyone made it out to be.
Yeah.
And I will rebut your previous statement. Disney did not do it first. DC did it first. Female-led superhero movies.
Oh. Well, no, wasn't Star Wars Force Awakens before Wonder Woman?
Whatever. They've both done it.
Yeah.
Well, I also wouldn't call Star Wars a superhero movie. But
I wouldn't call Batman a superhero movie. We could get into that argument.
We're going to get into semantics here. Let's not. That's not a fun discussion.
He's not super. He's a hero, but he's not super. That's the whole premise behind Batman.
Yeah, it's the same premise behind Iron Man.
And, yeah, their superpower is money.
Yep.
Yeah. Green Arrow. Yeah. I want...
Green Arrow, money hat.
Oh, well, yeah. $sign Arrow. I want the next character that comes out to be like poor, and they kind of did this with a Woody Allen movie called The Defendor, if you ever heard of that. No. He's poor, he works a security job, and at night he like puts on this like half-assed like security armor that's been spray painted over and goes out and fights crime, but gets his ass kicked all the time too. You know, Kick-Ass kind of, which the premise behind Kick-Ass was nice. It was, well, we sit around and read these comic book movies all day. Why can't we go do that? Like, why hasn't somebody strapped on some stuff? And granted, in Kick-Ass, the premise was he did it and he got his ass kicked so bad that he had to have metal put into his bones, and then he had nerve damage, so he didn't feel pain. And so there was kind of this like, well, he's still kind of like a Wolverine adamantium hero. So, yeah. But I want them to come out with like, John is an investment banker by day, and for 3 hours every night he kisses his wife goodbye, and he goes out and he just tries to stop like guys from mugging old women and breaking into cars. And
have fun writing that screenplay.
I mean, it's not going to take off. Nobody wants to hear about. And then John had to pay rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it would be like superheroing on a budget would be a very interesting, and that's something that they never really explain is Superman keeps jetting off to all these places and like kind of is a decent reporter, and yet somehow he can afford to eat all the time and patch up his suit. So I do not like that Superman's suit is bulletproof. I could see bullet resistant. I could see it like if he wore Kevlar, but he's wearing skin tight pajamas and the bullets are bouncing off and people go, oh, this material from his home planet. Bullshit. Why? First of all, it's material from his home planet. Okay, how's a needle get in to thread it? And there's just so many semantics that I feel like superhero stuff doesn't really cover.
There's such a thing called suspension of disbelief.
There is that, yes, and I get that sometimes, but at some point you have to, like, Iron Man spent 3 movies explaining where his super suits come from. Why can't Superman be like, look, I fucking don't know. It's this experimental cloth that this guy at the science lab. Batman explained where all his gadgets come from, Lucius Fox, right? Superman doesn't get a super card, skate card.
I know
the world wants to know.
I know
I'm getting very heated.
Yes, you are.
About something that doesn't fucking exist.
So at least in some of the comics, his outfit comes from the Fortress of Solitude.
Okay,
the Fortress of Solitude provides that.
But that was a crystal that his dad gave him, right? That he threw into the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, why? How does the crystal make a cloth?
You're asking questions, sir, that cannot be reasonably answered.
Where's Zack Snyder? I need these answered. Zack would be like, I didn't even think to ask that question. They just gave me a paycheck. I contributed to the script all I could. Martha!
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun, sir.
Yes,
talking about the comic books, and I need to do this more often. I love talking about fitness with my other guests. I love talking about the spiritual, but there's something about sitting across from you and talking about things that don't exist that I want to so desperately to exist that I come up with problems for it.
Well, hopefully in the future I can get you this excited about D&D.
We should do an entire episode on my first attempt at D&D, because I've talked to people who have done D&D and I've told them about my experience, and they, even though I preface it with it was my first time, I still get like eye rolls and like, why did you try to throw a dagger at a ogre? I was trying to save the people coming down the stairs. I'm a good guy. I don't know. It's what I would have done if that was in a video game.
It's not a video game. You have to unlearn those rules, sir.
That's the problem, and my roommate was even saying on the drive home, you kept looking at your character sheet. Stop looking at your character sheet. And I was like, but I'm used to like look at your stats and see if you can do this mission. I'm only level 26, so I can't do it. No. The second time will be a little easier. I think I'll be able to flow into it a bit more.
Well, how about we sync up after that second time and we can compare first and second sessions?
Yeah, and it might end with you saying, you know what, stick to the video games. Probably a better idea.
No.
You're good at Red Dead. Stick to Red Dead.
It's a learning curve. It was your first time.
It was the first time, and I went in. I didn't realize that there was homework involved in playing games.
Okay. I asked you to do a little bit of extra world building beyond what is normally required, just because I was building something, and I wanted everybody to contribute. That was all.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, everybody watching, who cares? I asked him to, come up with his character backstory, and additionally come up with 2 NPCs that his character knew, just as part of his backstory. I told him about this at least 3, probably 5 times.
I had ample opportunity.
And he didn't do it.
I didn't do it. No, it's fair. But also I was a little off-put by, we're gonna play D&D, and my roommate coming out with the handbook and like, poof. It's not a pamphlet. It's not a like I'll thumb through this on my coffee break. It's like chapters.
It is a solid hardback book.
It is. If you dropped it on somebody, they would definitely kick your ass. Yeah, and so I didn't understand the investment that it would take, and so I allotted about 10 minutes to work on my character sheet, and then all of a sudden I realized the amount of work, and that's when I texted you and said, "Hi, want to meet and like help?"
So there are some people that just love nothing more than to create new characters over and over again. And they'll like play them for a session and then set them aside forever and then create this next new thing that they came up with. And again, I admit that I gave you more homework than most DMs would give, especially new players. But you know that's why I noted that it didn't happen, but it's not like punished you for it or anything.
No, I didn't feel like it was like fucking. This is what you get for never playing D&D.
This is why you're being knocked unconscious 4 times and you died once.
I was only 3.
Oh, okay. So let's see. You jumped off of a building and failed your acrobatics check.
Yes.
And
I threw a dagger at a yoga.
At a yoga?
A yoga. Oh god.
A half-orc?
A yogi. Downward dog. Die.
You threw a dagger at a half-orc, and he knocked you out. Yeah. Then the next one was purely narrative. I admit you were slapped awake, questioned, and then knocked out again.
Okay, well then, I forgot about that. That's 4.
Yeah. And then, so you were 4 because then there was the fight on the top of the elevator.
I nobly sacrificed myself.
You know, first you got knocked out.
Shut up.
First you got knocked out, and then the bad guys resurrected you. And then you died.
And then I died nobly.
We can go with
nobly.
Sure.
Let me have this. The guy who gets knocked out 5 times gets to die nobly.
Knocked out 4 times, died once.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were brought back. You were actually resurrected by the end of the session. So, no harm, no foul.
I feel like that was the DM being like, I got to get him to come back for the second game.
Hey, you know what? At least you got it. That's the first time that my brother played.
Yeah?
So
I highly doubt that.
Oh, you underestimate him. First time he played, he was yes, folks, we're gonna nerd out even more. A chaotic.
Just when you thought you nerded too much.
He was a chaotic evil assassin. And he died, not knocked out. He died 5 times the first session. Because he kept throwing himself into situations that he reasonably could not live through. And
jumping off a building.
Yeah, worse than jumping off a building. Jumping off of a building into a gang brawl when someone had already thrown a lightning bolt. And I mean, he's level 1. That will kill. Yeah. But so what I had to do was I wanted my brother to keep playing. This was his first session. And so I kept bringing him back and bringing him back and bringing him back. And eventually I was like, you know what, you're doing this just to screw with me. So I'm going to screw with you right back. So the people who kept bringing him back, every time he died, they would seek out his dead body and bring him back so that they owed him life debts. Or he owed them life debts.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the first session, he owed 5 life debts. So, yeah, that was a great way of making him do whatever I needed him to do in the future. It was wonderful. It worked out.
That's great. I think my character owes some gargoyle creature that works as the flying taxi gold in the second game. And I'm like, that's future me's problem.
You know what? They got plenty of money anyways. I doubt they'll remember.
It was a very interesting setup that you played, and you created an entire city, an entire culture. So there's a lot of work that goes into it on your side of things, let alone the player creating themselves. everything.
Yeah, so this setting was, yeah, you thought we were almost done. This setting was particularly intense for me. There was a game that I played called The Quiet Year with a few other folks,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a collaborative map making game, driven by narrative.
Mm.
And yeah, figure out that's a bunch of words. Essentially, it ended up with me having this setting. I fast forwarded it 100 years through and a couple of ideas that I had for spice. And then the reason I asked all of you to create NPCs is to like
Populate
and kickstart my world, because I had a whole bunch of people and organizations and other stuff that I came up with, but I wanted this to feel alive, and I wanted stuff other than just the stuff that I created in there. Have you heard of an application called Scrivener?
No.
It is an author's tool for like novelists or screenwriters that allows you to write manuscripts and organize all your notes and do all sorts of stuff. I'm using it for D&D. And so like I have a whole bunch of notes for session notes. I have a whole bunch of pages for the PC, for characters, and all of my NPCs, all of my organizations and groups, all of my interesting items and key items and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I have like 250 pages.
Yeah, you had the computer, you had the tower for the dice and everything.
Oh, yes.
You were all set up in your kingdom of perched DM. You had a wall to block out everything.
Screen.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I've been playing D&D for almost I've been playing D&D for about 15 years.
Okay.
So, and I've been running games for at least 10.
Have you heard of the guy who's got an ongoing campaign, and it's been ongoing for 30 years?
I have heard reference to him. I'm not familiar with the details.
It's like he has his whole basement is D&D'd out. He has a tabletop like world that he keeps creating with miniatures that he like sets up a town and everything, and like every year he like just rebuilds. And okay,
That's
now we're going to put a world, a lake over here, and 30 years, and people like Skype in and they're on a waiting list to play the game with him. And yeah,
that's ridiculous.
It's insane. One of the things that threw me with D&D was it wasn't, it's going to sound weird, but turn-based, in that you go, now you go, now you go, now what are you doing? It was popping in and out, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I kept waiting for my turn until I realized, no one's going to stop and just wait for me to do something. I just
So here's the thing. As the guy running the game, it's my job to make sure that everyone has the spotlight for as long as they need it. So yes, there are people doing all sorts of things all the time, but if I notice that someone's been quiet for too long, if there isn't a narrative reason, like they were unconscious, then I'll say, okay, yes, you're doing that thing, but hold on, what are you doing? And I did that multiple times in that session, because my job isn't to kill you. It isn't to give you unreasonable circumstances. And my job, as I see it, is to put you in interesting situations and let you do the awesome crap that you want to do. And no one's going to do that if they're quiet and talked over the entire session.
Now, see, when I realized it was kind of popcorn play, it's a good term, I'm going to use it from now on, I started to think, well, my character's, sticks to the shadows and he's quiet and he's an ex-spy. Kind of makes sense that he's not running around doing all this stuff. He's kind of sticking back and seeing what's going on, and then only when he needs to does he kind of like stick in a toe and, hey, this is what I'm doing, kind of thing.
Well, but there's a difference.
Yeah.
Between participating in what the group is doing and raising your voice like in game versus doing things. And so a lot of what people can do isn't, oh, they're all doing this thing. Sure, I'm with them, but I don't have to immediately participate in, I don't know, throwing a liver at a halfling to try to mark them. But you could still, interject and say, okay, well, I'm going to like sneak through the crowd to try to get at this person, and so like still approach things and do stuff without raising your voice in character. And so you could still interject it that way. Without breaking character.
Yeah, the world of D&D is very interesting.
It can be a bit to get used to. And the other part is every group is different. Every single group is different. I assembled this crew very specifically, and I prompted everyone when I was getting them together, this is a very heavily narrative-based campaign, because there are narrative players, like I am primarily a role player. But then there are like the war gamers who just want to get into combat and figure out interesting combat scenarios. And there are min-maxers who just want to break the system in interesting and novel ways. I mean, there's so many different kinds of players. One of the challenges for me is to accommodate everyone. And so to make my job easier, because I knew that I wanted to focus on narrative and narrative development for this particular game, is I assembled players that I thought would do well with that.
Interesting. Yeah.
There's
this Pete Holmes, stand-up comedian. He also does, I think he had a show after Conan for a while. And he had a skit about his first time playing D&D. And it was like at work, 2 other guys are there with him, the DM, and he's sitting there, and it's their first time. They go to the tavern, and he's like, you walk into the tavern, and there's this wizard standing on the other side of the bar. Nobody's around him. He's working with his magic ball. It's Pete's turn, and he goes, oh, okay, I'm going to go to the opposite end of the bar. He goes, wait, what? You're not going to go up and ask him for a quest? And he goes, no, nobody's sitting around him. He's probably crazy, and he's working his magic. I don't want to do anything with that. The other 2 walk in, go over, and get a quest, and they're like, oh, we walk up to Pete, and we say, come on. And he goes, no, I'm staying in the tavern where it's safe. I'm not going to the dungeon where there's killers. And they get to the dungeon and they die immediately. Like the first thing that attacks him, he goes, well, we would be alive if you helped us out, Pete. And he was like, oh, no. He goes, I'm going to hit on the bar wench. You get up and walk away. The DM's like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, roll to see if she'll sleep with me tonight. And I was just like, I mean, that's how I imagined I would be playing if it wasn't kind of forced into this role of like, you're going to do action stuff. I'd be like, I'm going to stick here where it's safe and enjoy this world that you've worked so hard to create for me.
But that's part of why I asked you to come up with a character backstory. Because for me, I don't like those like dry hooks where you just walk into a place and you're expected to do this thing because you're a player. I don't like that. I like knowing who the characters are. That way I can provide meaningful hooks that the character would respond to. So like, oh, your mentor is missing and you're trying to find them. Okay, well, you're here is a lead to the mentor, which means you end up doing all of these other shenanigans along the way, but with the hope that you will find the information that you are looking for. And then as you continue on, you build these relationships over the sessions with the other players and with the NPCs, and then that becomes enough of a reason to go and do things. So as time goes on, you get more comfortable with the character, you get more invested in the character, and that leads to very organic storytelling.
Yeah, and I feel like my character is compelling, the backstory I came up with.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
There's so much that I'm going to do to screw with you. It's going to be wonderful.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's sell me on coming back. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where this goes. I'm enjoying my first experience, albeit sucking at it, but still having fun. It's okay to fail.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Just going back to the very beginning when we sat down and we were talking about mentality and outlooks and that sort of thing. Failure is much better than success in that you learn much more from a good failure than you learn from a bad success or a good success. Failure is a learning experience.
Well, what was it, Thomas Edison, when he tried 1,000 times before he came up with the proper way of making a light bulb. And they said, well, you failed nearly 1,000 times. Because I didn't fail nearly 1,000 times. I successfully came up with 999 ways how not to make a light bulb. And I'm becoming very successful at how not to play D&D.
Okay, you've had one session.
Okay, yeah, the one session. That, again, I knocked myself out 4 times, but I'm learning now.
I knocked you out.
Maybe, well, yeah, twice.
Of those 4 times you were knocked out, I had a direct hand in it 3 times. The first one, I'll grant you. You jumped off of a building.
I didn't know that you had to roll. I knew that I had the acrobatic specialty, and I went, what's jumping off a building for an acrobat?
If you hadn't failed miserably, it would have been really cool.
It would have, yeah. But instead, it was really funny.
It was. And that's how you were introduced to the rest of the group.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, hey, you look like you need healing.
Can somebody wake me up now? Which is also good because that was my first time, or at least extended time, meeting everybody in the group, and everybody else had played D&D before, and I was like, "Hey guys, I'm new. I'm gonna jump."
You weren't the only new one there.
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. No. The rogue, the performer.
Yeah.
She was new. That was her first time ever playing.
But her husband plays it.
Oh yes, tremendous.
Well, so she's got secondhand exposure. My secondhand exposure is like friends being like, we're going to play D&D in a castle. And I go, cool, I would walk around the castle.
And that's why I made you come up with the backstory.
That's why, yeah. I do. So what's your interest in D&D look like? Do you want to play it in a bar? Do you want to, is it just kind of your home setting is the best place for it? I know Rabbit's Foot Meadery kind of has this D&D vibe corner.
Yeah, but there's something about playing at home where it's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could go out and play D&D somewhere else, but I've never felt the desire to, because in general, it's a very, I don't know, close experience, if that makes sense. Like, you're there with the group you're playing with.
Yeah.
I've had situations before where there are a whole bunch of people around that aren't playing the game. And personally, at least as the guy running the game, it can be annoying because then the players, when they're not actively doing something in the game, turn around and are doing stuff with the other.
Oh, yeah, ordering a beer or something like that, going back and forth. Okay.
And it distracts from the game, which sounds really nerdy, but as the guy running the thing, trying to keep everybody on the same page, it is really freaking annoying when someone isn't paying attention.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also the equivalent of, like, if I'm playing a video game or multiplayer, and I just get up and walk to my kitchen, like, your character just stands there, and you get shot at, or your friends are like, hey.
Yeah. It's the equivalent of if you're just out hanging out with friends, then you whip out your phone, and you're on your phone for like 5 minutes, then you come back to the conversation with a joke for something that happened 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. You miss the inside joke, you miss the punchline.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's so switching gears slightly to the momentum group that I do. We start every meeting with a confidentiality clause. It's really easy. All these men get together, put your hand on man next to you, and 1, 2, 3, everybody says confidentiality. So 1, 2, 3, confidentiality. And without a doubt, you always have the one person that wasn't quite paying attention, and it's, as a group, confidentiality. And you don't want to be that guy that misses the 1, 2, 3, because then you just sound weird.
Right.
Yeah, and everybody looks too. It's because without naming names, somebody I know came the last month, and he was that guy, and everybody kind of went, yeah. So you don't want to miss that page, and when everybody's playing a game or telling a story or seeing a movie. Yeah.
Well, and when you're doing something more structured, like a video game, you can use, like, if you are that guy, you can usually come back into it and, from context clues, figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
With something like D&D, you leave, there are X number of people sitting at a table. You come back, there are X number of people sitting at a table. There are no context clues. You have to sit down and listen to the conversation, ask a whole bunch of questions, and disrupt everything to get back on the same page as everyone else.
Yeah.
So,
see, my thing was, during the game, I would zone out thinking, where is this going? And I'm trying to imagine the scenario. And then somebody would ask me a question. I go, oh, shit.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about your expectations of the game and that sort of thing, but were you surprised by anything in particular? Because, I mean, when there are few expectations, I imagine it can be hard to be surprised because you don't know what to expect.
I was surprised in it kind of went off on this rabbit shoot, and then all of a sudden and I can see from a narrative writer standpoint, it had to come back to this because this is what was planned, and we're off in a shop setting it on fire and locking people out and sending them down to get murdered by a half-orc. And there's just kind of this like, and kadoosh. It almost was like a parent, slapping somebody, get back on track kind of deal. But yeah, it was surprising in that the narrative can kind of go off in these butterfly trails. Yeah.
So that was more railroady than I normally am. Because I just really wanted to get to that set piece and continue move the plot forward, because this was also the session that really set the stage for everything that comes after it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to introduce the key NPCs and get you all to a place where it's like, okay, yes, this is the baseline for the rest of everything. After that session, everything is much more freeform.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, there are going to be times where there are specific things that I want to happen to move the narrative forward, but the narrative is not going to be as structured as it was. It's going to be much more me adapting to what you all do.
Okay.
So, for example, the way I see D&D is it's collaborative storytelling. There are stories that I want to tell, but it's more of I set up a sandbox of all these playthings that are doing their things on their own, and you all can interact with them as you will.
Okay.
And it is distinctly different from a video game sandbox in that video game sandboxes, all the NPCs wait for you to do crap. My game, they don't.
Yeah.
So if you don't stop folks from doing stuff, then they're just going to get away with the stuff that they're doing. And you may not ever find out that this NPC is doing this bad thing, or you may find out about this person instead.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. It just means that they might, or you might run into them later on, or the narrative can flex in all these different ways. But it gives you all much more freedom to decide what you're doing, who you're interacting with, and all that.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that kind of the ability to improv versus a video game is very much, I keep beating a dead horse, which is ironic because you ride horses, but Red Dead Redemption 2, your narrative is always going to be you're a cowboy or you're an outlaw in this world. Whereas the D&D one, you can say, I'm going to go jump off that building and see the consequences. In D&D, it's always you die or you knocked yourself out.
You make it sound so harsh.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. In Red Dead Redemption, it's always, you jumped off something, and the game knows if it's this high, you take this amount of damage. If it's this high, you die, kind of thing. Whereas in D&D, there's a little bit more allowance. There's maybe you land on somebody, maybe you do something, maybe somebody revives you, and there's a lot more improvisation.
Yeah. And that's why I love it. I love video games because they provide a sandbox. They provide those single-player experiences that can happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But D&D is where my heart really is. I get my creative fulfillment from it. I get to experience brand new stories that I have no idea where they're going because I don't know where the players are going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
With all these people that I love hanging out with.
Yeah. Yes. And it's also I liked, at least our group, was the fun, joking environment. And we were laughing and we were having fun with it versus much more serious, somber tones. And it was serious, somber moments that were brought to you with levity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just a sign of a good time. And we can have these awesome, more serious things, but not take it too seriously and do ridiculous crap in between.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, I'm looking forward to session 2, and then we can do a follow-up podcast on my vast improvement, which would just be knock myself out 3 times. That would be an improvement.
It would, and not die.
And not die, and not be revived at the last minute. It's funny because I was revived already thinking of my next character, and like, oh, this is what I'm going to do differently. And all of a sudden, we're going to revive you. And I went, damn it.
There's always next time.
There's always next time. Room for improvement. All right. On that note, I'm going to attempt to close this or stop recording this incredibly blind. Actually, no. I just hit 2 keys. I'll stop it.
I believe in you.
All right. This has been the Smash Me podcast, and this has been Manuel Silva.
Been a pleasure.